Hello and welcome to the first edition of the video version of the Tuesday Technical. So for the new joiners, I want to explain what Tuesday Technical is all about. So it all started when I was working at Merlin in 2013, and I was part of a global team of experts, so logisticians and pharmacists and myself. And there was one colleague. He was producing a weekly newsletter called the Monday Morning Metal. So he picked on a heavy metal band and told you all about it. And that was quite a success. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the same for technology. And so the Tuesday Technical was born. So on a Tuesday morning, I would send out an email on a topic of technology that would affect the aid world, NGOs and UN agencies. Other colleagues sort of jumped onto the same theme. So we had the Friday sort of from our sort of team leader. We had the Thursday pharmaceutical from the pharmacist, and and the Wednesday logistics. So every day there was a really good newsletter sort of popping up. Um, it's not weekly now, but things get a bit busy these days. Um, but the newsletter sort of initially it was a sort of a closed to the organisation, but in recent years I've actually sort of switched to a blog, and it's out there on the website. But here we are, breaking new ground again. I thought a video would be a great way to sort of present technology, or how we use the technology in the aid world. So, without further ado, let me talk about technology. And so, the theme for this video is satellite communications. And I'm going to talk about where we've come from, what we're doing now, and what we might be doing in the future. So, where did satellite telecoms start? So this goes back to the 60s and 70s. Putting a satellite network for communications in place, expensive operation, and certainly back in the 60s and 70s, the launch of rockets was a lot more expensive than it was now, and it was so expensive that government got involved. So back in the 60s and 70s, most of the big telecom operators like British Telecom, which at that stage was called Post Office Telecoms, France Telecom, AT&T in the USA, Deutsche Telekom, and in Asia you had Singapore Telecom and a few others. They all clubbed together to establish Inmarsat, and so this was basically Inmarsat is an acronym for International Maritime Satellite. So the main purpose of the service was to give mariners at sea, mainly ships, because these systems were quite large, the means to make telephone calls from the ship to shore. And then as a bolt-on to that service, they had a big red button that gave people the ability to send a distress call to the Coast Guards. So there's some Coast Guard control centres around the world, even to this day, which can take those distress calls. So that was kind of where it started, and certainly when I first started using satellite phones in the early 90s on board ships, you would be paying upwards of $10 per minute to phone your family. So it wasn't cheap. So rolling forward to where we are now, from the early noughties, we had in fact 1999, the first sort of hand portable satellite telephone was launched by Iridium. Unfortunately, Iridium went into bankruptcy proceedings, and they sort of dropped off air after a few months and didn't really emerge until a few years later. And then by 2001, the UAE invested in a new network called Thuraya, and that kind of really stormed across the global south, particularly Africa, Asia, and so they really sort of picked up a lot of the market because the only competitor at that stage was Inmarsat, and their sort of telephone technology at that particular time was about the size of a small laptop. So there was no choice, or for many organisations they went straight for the Thuraya handset, which could fit into your back pocket. So typically now, Iridium's come back. We've got Thuraya, we've got Inmarsat. They've all got handsets now, and the average price is about $1 per minute to make a phone call, and that's kind of really useful for people that sort of are based out in remote locations, and it's also a good backup for security should things like your mobile phone fail. In recent years, the technology has evolved a bit further. So Iridium have come up with devices like this. So yes, it's a sat phone. It operates like a normal mobile phone, but it's got one feature, and it's this button on the side, and it's called the PTT. And the benefit of the PTT mode of communication is that it's a sort of it works like a radio. It's a one-to-many format that allows maybe if you've got fleet management operations taking place, then somebody pushing a button in HQ can talk into the handset, and then all the vehicles hear the same message at the same time. And actually, it's actually a safer mode of communication for drivers because all they've got to do is pick up a microphone and talk, which is great. The only downside to this particular sort of handset is the sound quality. It's absolutely shocking because this thing was originally designed just as a normal satellite telephone with a speaker. It's small, and the audio quality is absolutely fantastic when you're using it in phone mode. But if it's on your dashboard and you're trying to use it, that as a speaker at full volume, the sound gets absolutely distorted. So for PTT operations, I don't particularly recommend this handset, but you can get around it by buying a plug-in handset which has better quality. So that's good. But the better option actually is, I think it's last year or year before now actually, the team at ICOM, which is a Japanese radio company, released a version that actually looks and operates like a standard VHF walkie-talkie. So really fit for purpose. And we've actually deployed at Save the Children. We've deployed a number of those out into Liberia, where it's being used now. So, and I know other aid agencies and UN agencies are also following the same route. So looking into my crystal ball, I can see PTT being a replacement for HF radio. And the reason for that is that recent studies has actually sort of revealed that HF radio is actually failing in the aid sector big time. It's and for various reasons. Firstly, it's because people are using mobile phones, so people are kind of losing the skills and the confidence to use a HF radio. Secondly, the people that used to maintain radio equipment, they're leaving the sector. There's not so much skill around, so on a lot of occasions the radio is not maintained properly. So it's not looking great. So there is now a move. So I know that in some of the UN agencies, there are plans now to discontinue formal support for HF radio by 2025, and that's something that we're kind of looking at in Save the Children, probably sort of taking HF out of circulation, and in due course maybe sort of going for this technology as the backup. So that's what the future kind of looks like, and and that bring about some more benefits as well. HF radio is actually quite expensive to set up, as well as being technically difficult, needing more knowledge. Um, and So I've done some number crunching, and if we sort of bought, let's say, 10 HF radios, um, with you take and it's heavy, so you build in the shipping costs and all that sort of stuff, then you reach a price equal to that. Okay, and then we look at the PTT equivalent, and the price is down here somewhere for the setup. So it doesn't cost anything to run at HF, but you have to pay annual licenses, so the fee goes up slowly. And then you've got the monthly costs of PTT, which sort of slowly catches up with the initial investment of the radio. And then we come to a point, your total investment in both technologies match at about 3 years, at which time you're looking possibly replacing the radio systems anyway. So so financially it starts to make sense, especially for the shorter run missions when you're only going into a country for, let's say, about a year maximum. So I think PTT is going to be the way forward. So coming into mobile technology now. So mobile phones, we've been through a few changes over the past years. We went from sort of analog to digital in the 90s. We're now using fourth generation mobile technology with faster internet speeds. 5G is just around the corner. It has been rolled out into some countries, and I think for me personally, the ability to use WhatsApp, access the internet on the 4G system is actually sufficient. I don't need it to be any faster. The video quality that you're going to get from a small screen, I don't see that you get any more benefits from investing in 5G. I think it's a complete waste of time. If you're just looking at this sort of as something to use on your mobile phone. But where I do see 5G playing a major role is not so much, sort of keeping these things connected. It's more about keeping an office connected. So in some countries in the global south, if you want to connect up an office to the internet, it involves maybe digging up the roads, putting in fiber optic technology. It might be ADSL services, which is sort of going through old copper cables that crackle and pop, and your service goes up and down. So 5G could be a fantastic way of getting faster connectivity into the offices. And this is important because a lot of NGOs and UN agencies were relying on the internet now for various services, range from supply chain, project management, handling finance stuff, and also for accessing online SMS messages for engaging communities. So like getting people to turn up to their appointments on time in various clinics and so on. So the internet connection for a 5G service could actually improve things in some sort of locations, and actually overall reduce the cost of installation and actually speed things up. And also, since we're in sort of a mid-pandemic, the 4G, 5G networks are equally as good at keeping people connected whilst they're working from home. That's for sure. Although there are other challenges in the global south, such as power supplies. I've actually written about power supply issues for home workers on my blog last year, but I will return to power at some point in a future video. So yeah, 5G I think will have a major role to play. The important thing is that to get those fast 5G services, the internet service providers will have to make sure that they got the backhaul service to make it work. It's a bit like water. No point having a fast fat, juicy pipe that's got the capacity of sort of delivering gallons of water per second, and then you got feeding into that pipe, drip, drip, drip. So it's that's not going to work. But we are seeing more fiber optic, sort of sea cables connecting up countries. So that's going to help. So let's take off into space again, back to satellites and SpaceX. Let's talk about SpaceX, Elon Musk's outfit. Some interesting innovation coming up. So SpaceX has actually launched a new service called Starlink, and this is actually promising fast internet connection speeds, probably around about 300 megs. So that's going to be a bit of a game changer. And in Save the Children, where I've been sort of running satellite communications now for quite a few years, since 2014 in fact, we've been using traditional satellite operators. VSAT is a classic example, 2.4 meter dish, $5,000 to set up, and then per megabit per second, just under $1,000 a month to run. So the economics is a bit different with Starlink. Their systems are smaller, cheaper, faster. $500 for setup, and then $99 a month for a 300 meg service. What is there not to like about that? Budget holders will be absolutely ecstatic. I can see some challenges, and so this is like big tech coming in with lots of money, and there might be some pushback in some countries, as it might push some of the local players to one side. So just be aware that because Starlink is going to be providing a service, it may not be available in all countries, particularly those countries that have a stricter regulatory environment on internet access in the first place. But we, at the moment, as you'll see on the map, Starlink is actually covering North America, across the Northern Europe, and I think it's going to be pretty good for some rural places, that's for sure. But some of the concerns I'm seeing raised already, certainly in the UK, is there are some rural projects to get internet into different places, and so some of those providers are kind of trying to sort of put longer term contracts in place now to lock people in, because they see Starlink as a threat. And the other concern I've got is, will Starlink continue to build out their backhaul capacity to make sure that all their customers continuously keep getting the speeds they're seeing today? So that's the big question, and I've seen this a lot with the terrestrial internet providers in many countries, even in this country. I've got my daughter lives up outside London, and on sort of Facebook groups up there, there's a huge campaign at the moment against Virgin Telecom, because everyone's working from home and the network's struggling. So eventually they've gone in and actually split the network and put more capacity in. That seems to resolve the problem. But people were struggling for quite a few months. And it even got to the BBC News. So, and that was like the local community making a lot of noise, and eventually they got listened to. But this could happen to Starlink as well if they're not careful, and keep that service going, because there's nothing worse than investing time and money into getting your connection set up, and it's all okay, and then you enter a world of pain with slow connections, because that's certainly not going to help anyone. But that's going to be a game changer, that's for sure. And the other game changer, which is not here yet, but it's an organization called AST and Science. They've just signed a deal last year with Vodafone, and this is taking a different approach to satellite communications. Um, so far, to access satellite services, you need special equipment such as, the BGAN. That's a satellite product for getting the internet. The Iridium, there's all expensive technology, and wouldn't it be nice if I could just use my mobile phone to access satellite services? And that's exactly what ASTN Science is doing with Vodafone. And I looked at their website a few days ago, and yeah, that was kind of an interesting read, because the first thing I did, I went to the board of directors and I seen some names I recognized. Sort of people that I've bought services from when they were with different Satcoms operators. So there's a huge wealth of expertise in this new start company, and clearly they've done well to convince Vodafone to get behind them. I would imagine with some financing, but the model is by 2023 they'll have a network of satellites. I think they're talking about somewhere close to 20 or more satellites in orbit, and you'll be able to access voice services and data just using a standard mobile telephone like this. That is going to be a massive game changer in certainly in the global south, but I think also in developed nations like here in the UK. We do get especially the rural communities, people's kind of struggling a bit with phones, and they'll get a service. But like all satellite technology, they'll probably still need to go outside to access that service. But there are ways around it, which I might discuss in a future video. But I think the way this is going to work is not like one big player coming in and forcing all the local networks out. This is all going to be done in partnership with the local network providers. So the way this will technically work is that for people that are signed up to the national providers, Vodafone, or in Africa it might be Safaricom or MTN. In Asia it might be Airtel, or one of the other sort of Bharti group companies. You'll still have those contracts in place for when you're sort of using your phones connected to local towers in a normal way. But let's say you're driving into a remote place, then you'll have the option for the same company to access the AST and Science network of satellites just using your handset, with no modifications. It's just like a normal, $100 handset off the shelf or cheaper, and you've got a technology that you can use practically anywhere in the country. So you watch your space. I am going to come back to this in a future video, just when more information arises, because I think this is it's certainly one thing I think is going to be it's not just going to affect the aid sector, that's for sure. It's going to be so beneficial to other sort of settings. The maritime sector is going to find it really helpful. So that's it. We've come to the end of this first edition of the Tuesday Technical video, and next time I'm going to be talking about how technology is going to support the education of children. So how do we get children safely back to school? And that's going to be coming out probably towards the end of March 2021. Thank you for watching.